You come from an environment that has produced generational cycles, generational curses, either within the family or in your community, and you're tired of it and you want to break out. Well, you're in the right place, because I'm going to give some practical steps on the difference between when it was almost impossible for me to break these cycles and what I do now to work towards breaking these cycles. So stay tuned. All right, so what's up? My name is Seth Whitted, owner of Whittedmedia. My goal is to completely bridge mental health and high levels of success. I come from an environment where there is a lot of emotional and mental trauma that's not addressed, and it gets in the way of high levels of success. And now that I continue to break through these things, I'm actually getting to see the blessings and the benefits of breaking these generational cycles, curses, and, personal development. So let's get into it. One of the ways that stop people who actually want to break a generational cycle, the reason it's hard, one of these ways, is because we tend to look at the symptoms of the cycle and not the underlying issue. And just as an example, you might look at your parent and say, man, I'll never be an alcoholic, or I'll never be addicted to something, or I'll never be abusive. I'll never fall for these kind of men, or I'll never be bad with money. And you obsess over that. Symptom that you do succeed in that area of you might never become addicted. You develop processes to never become addicted. But in not being taught to look for the underlying habit or issue that leads to the addiction, that leads to abuse, what ends up happening is we end up creating another totally separate symptom from that habit, that in turn our children say, I'll never be like that. I'll never be like that. And then they end up mastering that and then creating a whole new symptom. And so when I realized this, I knew I had to develop a process for spotting these underlying issues. And therapy was never pushed. I've still never been to therapy. I'm probably going to try it out this year and see if there's some extra benefits. It only makes sense that somebody else helping you through the journey that's a professional would be extremely helpful. So I want to try it out. But unfortunately, I've always been hungry enough to say, no, I got to figure this out. And so I want to give you 6 steps that I use that are in the book, Breaking Negative Cycle. And there's also more in there, but I only want to give 6 just to shorten this video. So, of course, number 1, me being a man of God, my first step is always praying and fasting for God to expand me mentally and emotionally to be able to actually see what's going on and to actually reveal to me what's wrong, what's underlying here, put me around the right people, open my eyes to it, and I actually fast for these answers as well. I think this is extremely important because, in my opinion, not just my opinion, I think it's a fact that this is a spiritual journey. And without the spiritual journey, I don't know how others uncover these things, or if they do uncover them, without the spiritual journey, how are they breaking them? So number 2 is having weekly meetings with yourself, almost like a business meeting. Doesn't have to be long, but it's just a meeting where you're setting certain goals in your life, professional, personal. And you say, this is what I want for the year. And this is what I plan to do weekly to get there. For example, my goal for the week might be to make a certain amount of content. Or on a personal level, it might be to become a better husband to my wife. And so I'll set goals within inside of that, like do this for your wife or create this environment. And so in these meetings, I literally will assess how well I met my goals for the week and what was the distraction. And a lot of times inside the distraction, I can see, oh, what is this habit? oh man, you're overly consuming. Like for some reason, you just kept going over here and watching these videos that you're not even about to make no content about. It's just a distraction. Like, what's going on? And so I start to dig deep on what is the root of that. What's the issue there? And a lot of times when I have, personally, when there's something that's in the way of me reaching my goals, when I trace it back, it's normally something that stems from childhood. And so once I spot it and I can kind of define it, let's say it's something like leadership, right? If I have a hard time holding people accountable, then I go back to my history and I see, what does that come from? Why am I afraid of conflict? Yada, yada, yada. And I'll research all those subjects and then start to compile a list of rules that I follow in specific situations. For example, if somebody, if a staff of mine doesn't do something, if they said they were going to create 5 pieces of content and they don't create 5 pieces of content, having a meeting with them, confronting them, and letting them know, seeing what they need for me to be able to get the 5 pieces of content, and laying out what the consequences will be if they can't meet that. So that's now my new rule. And now understanding that when you finally set the rule after you've uncovered what this root of this generational cycle might be, that doesn't mean you're going to heal from it. All that means is you're creating a process to protect you from your natural instinct that generational habit or cycle has created, until you can heal from whatever has caused it. So don't get it twisted. This is just a binary solution. This is what the therapists tell me. It's just a binary, simple solution, but it's not actually healing. So keep that in mind. Create the rule, but you still need to do some healing. Number 3, when you set that goal about that specific subject, I challenge you. What I like to do is I like to find books, and I'm an audiobook guy, books, speakers, people who specialize in this specific area. So back to leadership. If it's about leadership, conflict resolution, when it was about conflict resolution and leadership, what I did was I dove in to look up top 20 books, speakers, and I came across a book called Not Nice by Dr. Aziz, which talked about conflict resolution and why men and women tend to avoid conflict. No More Mr. Nice Guy, which was about men and how society has kind of taught us to shy away from conflict and teach you how to be more of a man of healthy conflict. I'm trying to think of what other books. But those were 2 solid books for me. Oh, and The Ways of a Superior Man, I ran into that one. And so I challenge you to, whatever subject it is, really define that subject. Because although I said leadership, it really came down to conflict for me. Me wanting to avoid blow-ups and having to cut people off, and just this extreme end of conflict. So I went the other way and avoided conflict so that it didn't turn into a blow-up. And the book made me realize that. So define what that issue is, consume a bunch of content about it. Number 4 is tough conversations. Tough conversations is when you find people around you that you love, that you charge them to point out the things that they can see. Because believe it or not, like, the people that are closest to you can already see your issues. And they just know that they might not be able to approach you with it because you're not ready to receive it. You're defensive. You didn't ask for it. They don't want to hurt your feelings. Who knows what the reason might be. But challenge them and let them know, let them know that it's imperative. Let them know that it's imperative for them to tell you and point out these blind spots of yours. And that you're not going to react in that moment. You're not going to be defensive. You're going to hear them out. You're going to write it down and you're going to sit in it and think about it. If you become defensive, they're going to give you one shot. If you become defensive, argue back, they're never going to open up. They're not going to tell you about it anymore because they don't want to deal with it. That's your problem. Why would they want to disrupt their own peace? So have those important conversations without being defensive. Number 5, which comes back to the weekly meetings, which is setting rules and principles, but a little bit more in depth. Being specific about what you will do and what you will not do in these specific situations. Like if you keep running into an abusive man or an abusive woman, at the end of the relationship, if you feel like you tend to get into a relationship within a month and you haven't healed, maybe your new rule is I can't even talk to the next guy or give out a number or ask a girl on a date for another 6 months, and I have to read a certain amount of books and I gotta talk to a certain amount of therapists, whatever. Set some specific rules that prevent you from at least making, I wouldn't say the same mistake, but that prevents you from taking the same steps. Because you want to learn the lessons. You want to create principles that can prevent you from yourself, from making the same mistakes again. So number 6 is also picking up my book, Breaking Negative Cycles, How to Get Out of Your Own Way to Succeed, where I go through my own personal life and I give practical steps. This is deeper than a personal development book. It's not about motivation. There's motivation in it, but it talks statistics about different strategies. I went and found data and things to back up the things that I've tried for myself, and I give you practical tips beyond these tips that I've just given you. So with that, I want you to understand that breaking cycles is damn near impossible. And it's impossible, and I think that that's why it takes a lot of patience, persistence, support from others, spiritual relationship with God, professional help, and forgiving yourself on the journey. Because what I've understand is nothing is more rewarding than actually the journey of trying to break a negative cycle in order to succeed. Because of all the cycles that I've broken, or that I'm like breaking, because I think it's a lifelong thing. It's not you break it and then you're done with it. When I find myself on the other end of the cycle where I'm like, it's no longer affecting me, that doesn't bring happiness or joy or fulfillment. The fulfillment actually comes from the actual journey. The ups and the downs, the learning, the talking with others, the patience that you have with yourself, the forgiveness, the grace. It's almost like a football season, right? Where when the season's over, what do? There's no more practice every day. There's no more films. There's no more struggle, no more working out. Like, you don't get to see the guys you just went to war with for the last few months. And you kind of miss that. So once you find yourself on the other end of that cycle, at least for me, I almost don't find peace until I'm in the next cycle, until I uncover the next thing that God reveals to me as an issue and blocking me from success. And so now I'm back on that journey. So I challenge y'all, break negative cycles, get out of your own way and succeed, and subscribe below and stay connected. This is just episode 1. We're going to be going all year long. Tap in with your boy.